All right, welcome everybody. Sorry. Sorry,
Go ahead.
I should have waited. Welcome everybody. I am calling the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Clements,
Here.
Vice President Valentine, here. Trustee Clementson,
Here.
Trustee Headland,
Here.
and Trustee McNally.
Here.
So I am actually going to make a motion that we go into recess for the purpose of recognizing our tenure recipients. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's the first time in 6 years I've been here where the motion actually came with a small applause. I think that's great. I think that's great. One of the absolute joys of being a superintendent of school is having the opportunity to meet so many individuals who are choosing to become educators in our school system. And with that, to watch them grow through their probationary period and arrive at the time where we're here this evening to recognize them crossing an important threshold in their service as a teacher to become, to receive tenure. And we have three candidates who we are recognizing this evening. Rebecca Masbach, who's a special education teacher at Haldane High School. Yep. Jessica Stein, who I don't see in the room yet, but Jessica's our band teacher and works with many of our students K through 12. And hopefully Jessica will be in any minute now, yes? And Josh Elder, who serves as our Director of Human Resources and Curriculum. Josh, congratulations. And the board is familiar that 2 years ago we engaged in a process of examining our core values as a school system, and part of that process was thinking about who were our best employees, who are our best teachers, who are our best clerical staff members, maintenance and operation staff, and what were the quality and attributes that they seemed to have in common. So as we went through as we examined and review probationary candidates, we consider not only their competency as an educator, not only do they know pedagogy and know rules and regulations, but do they also model the core values that we have as a school system? Are they service-oriented? Are they team players? Are they trustworthy? Do they have emotional intelligence? Are they learners? Are they adaptable? And especially at Haldane, do they have a can-do attitude? And I can say with complete confidence that the three individuals who are recognizing this evening model all of those qualities and attributes, and granted in different ways. To speak a little bit more about that, we're going to invite a couple other members of our community just to speak on their behalf. So first, I'd like to start with Dr. Cation. Dr. Cation will be speaking on behalf of Julia Sniffen and herself in recognition of Rebecca Masbach. So, Regina, when we're ready, come on up to the microphone.
So thank you, President, Vice President, and trustees of the board, and thank you to Dr. Benante. It is a true pleasure and an honor to be here to speak on behalf of Rebecca Masbach. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Julia Sniffen and myself, and we couldn't be more proud. Rebecca Masbach is a tenure candidate at Haldane High School. She's been part of our learning community since September 3rd, 2020. She is a Master of Arts in Social Studies from the Teachers College at Columbia University. She has an advanced certificate in teaching from PACE and a Bachelor of Arts in American Studies from Wesleyan University. Rebecca currently teaches co-taught English, Regents 11, co-taught Regents Earth Science, and Resource Room. She has a firm handle on earth science, biology, English, and history at all levels. Her dedication to implementing the universal design for learning into her lesson plans shows a commitment to inclusivity and accessibility for all students. Her willingness to collaborate with colleagues and offer staff development demonstrates her leadership and support for professional growth of herself and her colleagues. And I might add that Rebecca took on the initiative to really dig into and work on our ability to do better transition planning for our students. She not only engaged in professional learning, but she actually turnkeyed it for our staff. She provided ASSDs, but she was also just a resource. She was the go-to as we tried to do a better job with our exit summaries. And she really became an expert and then was willing to collaborate with our school counselors and educate them, but also educate our entire staff. It's that kind of initiative that I think makes Rebecca special. Rebecca's commitment to our school community extends beyond the classroom. Her involvement in extracurricular activities, such as chaperoning events, co-directing the middle school play, is a testament to her dedication to the holistic development of our students and the school community. And might I add, she did all of this while she was dealing with broken limbs and all sorts of other challenges on the home front. And she didn't miss a beat. Her efforts not only directly benefited her students, but also contribute significantly to to the overall improvement of our school environment. Also, another sort of an aside, we recently had the need for another educational evaluator, and Rebecca threw her hat into the ring. She's always willing to learn. She met with me the other day, and she's really excited to take on this new role of learning how to do educational evaluations. And I know that Rebecca herself has a strength-based focus, and so I'm really excited about the contribution she's going to make from this perspective. Rebecca is here to serve. She's a team player with a can-do attitude, and she has a really good sense of humor. So key in this profession. Her colleagues and her students respect and love her. And with that, I can confidently say that both Ms. Sniffen and I highly recommend Rebecca for tenure at Haldane.
Rebecca, we have a small gift for you. Just wanted to make sure we pass it off to each of our recipients.
Thanks so much.
Tempted to say next up, but I'm not sure what's happening in the microphone right now. There we go. Okay, so speaking in recognition of Jessica Stein, Jessica, I'm glad you were able to make it, is Marianne Silke. Marianne, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's really a true pleasure to speak on behalf of Jessica Stein this evening. Jessica and I actually started at Haldane at the same time, but Jessica started as a part-time teacher and then moved into a full-time position. So Jessica has 7 years of service at Haldane with our students K-12, in band, in music, which is just such a important and enriching way to reach our students' lives. So with her guidance, the mission of the Haldane music program, specifically the band, has been to grow in numbers and in skill. She's expanded the repertoire of music that students are exposed to and master for performances. Students are empowered to become musicians under Jessica's care. This mission is met by supporting the development of students' abilities through class, lessons, participation in NYSSMA, and participation in other adjudicated events that are also fun, like music in the parks. In addition, the high school students participated in a joint performance this past year at Marist College alongside Director Malcolm Jones at Marist. So Jessica's definitely expanding our students' horizons. Jessica designs lessons that promote critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity among her students. She collaborates with other music educators in the region and sharpens her skills by participating in ongoing professional learning. For example, Jessica recently participated in a course study to hone her conducting abilities. Another fun fact is Jessica is a certified yoga instructor. So all of those are transferable skills. In her tenure at Haldane, she has worked to update the musical selections available to students and incorporate student choice. And as a result, participation in the musical program has grown to retain students throughout the high school years. So Jessica, beyond any shadow of a doubt, desires to make the music program accessible to all students. And Jessica is an essential part of the instructional program at Haldane. It is without hesitation that I recommend Jessica for your consideration as a candidate for tenure tonight. Thank you.
I'm next, or Josh is next. So I'll speak on behalf of Josh. And I have a lot to say about Josh, so we're going to be here for a little bit. Kidding. I would say that managing the school district, and when I reflect back 6 years ago, was a lot like trying to play a baseball game without the catcher. And the catcher, if you know, has a view of the whole field and can see how the game is moving in a way that the other players on the field can't. And often the catcher serves in a capacity that isn't really readily seen or observed. He or she manages the pitching staff or prepares for various hitters in the lineup. A lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that isn't viewable to someone watching the game. And for us, I really feel that this is the role that Josh Elder plays for our team. I want to speak a little bit about our values. I want to come back to that, and particularly those which I think Josh embodies. One, he's a team player. Josh has to navigate all of the various personalities among the administration, including mine, which isn't an easy task on any given day. As you can imagine, our principals are encountering things at the building. Myself and Regina are managing, our own various elements of the district. And Josh has found a very graceful way to kind of tiptoe in and out of that, and in a really productive and contributing way. Josh is highly emotionally intelligent. Josh deals with some really sensitive matters that occur among our students and our staff members. He's the go-to for that, not only by regulation that the board establishes, but just by function of his role and being a human resource professional in the district. He's the person who folks seek out when something's going on, and sometimes life catches up with them and are dealing with difficult things in their personal lives or in their home lives. And Josh is the go-to to help them facilitate or process through that in a supportive way. And he's incredibly adaptable. You have to be adaptable at Haldane. And as you know, this department didn't exist prior to Josh being here. It was created, and we identified Josh as the leader to run the department in human resources and curriculum. And that was something that many people had a part of, and we were taking that back and giving complete oversight of both the departments to Josh, and he managed that really well. He adapted really well in fulfilling his responsibilities. A couple things I just want to highlight as it relates to work that Josh has facilitated at Haldane. He oversees now all elements of our recruitment, hiring, and the performance review of all staff members. And I've spoken about that at various times over the years, but I have a great sense of confidence in the individuals that we're hiring and that we're recommending for tenure truly represent the best individuals in the field who could be available to us. And part of that is, and the success of that is owed to Josh, as he manages, again, the recruitment and hiring process, and then also the performance review as we go through. Additionally, as I mentioned, Josh, we went through a human resource audit right prior to Josh coming in, and he's taken the results of that audit and each year just chipped away at making sure that we were coming into compliance with various rules and regulations. It's not glamorous stuff, but it's really important to ensure that that work is being done, and Josh has managed that and a piece of that each year of his tenure here. And he also, we have 3 bargaining units, and it's very important to our school district to have a positive relationship with our teachers, with our CSEA members, as well as our administrative staff. And Josh serves as the key liaison between the district and those units, the leadership of those units, and does so really well. So he's active in our collective bargaining process, in representing the district's interests, as well as balancing those with the interests of our respective bargaining units to ensure that we maintain really positive labor relations here at Haldane, which I think we do really well. And just over the course of the past few years, Josh has managed our professional learning. in support, in collaboration with other members of our leadership team. This is work related to the NWEA. The board receives reports on such. The science of reading work we've done. Josh has managed that in collaboration with Christine at the elementary level. Universal design for learning, which Regina had referenced in speaking about Rebecca. Again, Josh is a key individual in supporting who we bring in for that work and the expectations that we set for staff and what we expect for them to model that work moving forward. Overall, again, I couldn't speak more highly for Josh and the support that he's provided to the district in this new role, and he has my full endorsement for tenure this evening. Josh, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So just in closing, tenure for our tenure candidates here. Tenure symbolizes many things, one of which is it's an acknowledgement that you're a full-fledged member of our community. And I think that being a member of our community is an active process, or it demands something of you. Much like you embodied in your years here thus far, some folks, and I think, well, once I receive tenure, that's the time now to become less engaged, and it's the complete opposite. It's the time to become more engaged. And I'd also like to acknowledge that becoming a member of our community, it doesn't mean that you necessarily think or act like everybody else. In fact, those differing views and perspectives are needed to make a community whole. Your active engagement on behalf of what you think is best for kids is what's necessary to keep Haldane a thriving learning community. It ensures that we can arrive at a deeper level of thinking that is necessary for us to make the best decisions about our kids as a school system. So in many ways, this is a compact. Tenure symbolizes our board's trust in you. Not only that you not only embody the values of our school system, but you'll continue to in the years ahead. And it also signifies your sense of responsibility to these district values as well. So once again, congratulations to those of you, to Rebecca, and to Jessica and Josh. We're incredibly proud of you. And what we'd like to do is to break. I see we have some friends and family here, so we'd like to take a couple pictures if that's okay. And we have a lot of cake. So we want to make sure we have some time to just enjoy each other's company and talk a little bit before we proceed on with the meeting, if that's okay with you, Ms. Clements. Okay, great. So with that, once again, congratulations, and we'll take another recess. Thank you. I'll cut the cake.
Move that we reconvene into our open meeting. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. I am also going to make a motion that we, to the approval of the agenda, that we actually amend the agenda to replace the current Section J new business with a new Section J unfinished business, and under that is an item for a discussion item for the board self-evaluation for the 23-24 school district, and then we'll just move everything down. So I'm making that motion. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. So comments all right. So welcome, everybody. My formal comments. The next meeting of the Haldane Board of Education is the annual reorganization meeting on Tuesday, July 9th at 7 p.m. in the Haldane Middle School High School Library. And that's where we will be welcoming our new member, Michelle Cover, and also our new interim superintendent, and getting ready for the 24-25 school year. These dates actually sound kind of science fiction-y to me, but I just keep saying them.
It's still 1999. Let me just throw that out there.
Like, that's not that long ago.
That's a big watershed year.
So actually, we're in a period of time where we're welcoming new people and also saying goodbye to others, where we're celebrating events. And so later on in this meeting, at the very end, during board reflections, I think we have plans to recognize our colleague John on his last day, at his last meeting, and very importantly, to also recognize Dr. Benante at his last meeting. I think the only other thing I want to say really briefly is many of us were at high school graduation on Saturday, and it was just beautiful, I have to say. And the now not so secret event is that I cry every year at a graduation, really because I am so grateful. I am so, so many of us in this community are so fortunate. And it was a graduation that had some really very touching and sad moments as well, because there have, were definitely sad events of the year. But it was really lovely, and really Ms. Paparo and Ms. Granisi and Dr. Benante just did a fantastic job picking up where Mrs. Sniffer couldn't be there. So anyway, it was really great. So those are my comments.
Yeah, I have a few as well, Peggy. Thank you, and thank you to the board for your recognition and time for recognizing our tenure recipients this evening. Just going to bounce around here on a few things. I had the opportunity, first, congratulations to the board on appointing Mr. Albano as the interim superintendent. Great choice. I had the opportunity to meet with Carl yesterday. It's Tuesday, right? It is Tuesday because we're at a board meeting. So I met with him yesterday to go over some transition items, some exit plan items, and I know you know that Carl is just so enthused to be a part of the Haldane community next school year, and I think he's going to be a great fit, and I was really encouraged by the time that we had to spend together. And fun fact, went into Mr. Albano's office, and he had a beautiful Labrador Retriever that is his own, that is a certified therapy dog. And I said, wow, well, you talk about immediate value being brought to Haldane. He said, do you think I forgot the dog's name. She's wonderful. Do you think she would be welcome there? I said, I know for certain she will be welcome here. So, he takes the dog into the classrooms on certain days, and it's absolutely fantastic. So, but Carl brings a lot of other great things to Haldane too. So, in addition to his dog, but I look forward to continuing to work with Carl in the weeks ahead, and affirmed for him that I will continue to be available as needed as he transitions into the district. I did just want to raise some awareness. We have some facilities work going on in the next couple of weeks, so this is more standard business. A reminder that our softball fence is actually in the process of being replaced. So if you're driving by 9D, you'll see some of that work now. Looks great, and thanks to Mr. Cunningham and Mr. McNeil for facilitating that work. The football field turf replacement project is scheduled to begin next week. So you'll see a lot of activity down in that area. And then we also have an abatement project in the Mabel Merritt building that begins towards actually I think it's July 1. So you'll see a level of activity going on in the back annex area. Just wanted to raise, again, your awareness of that as that goes on. Earlier today, and again next week, we'll have an opportunity to recognize our retirees. And this evening, the Faculty Association hosted a wonderful recognition. We had a chance to scoot in there and scoot out, but just again wanted to congratulate Donna Summers, Jen Windells, who'll be retiring a little bit into next school year, so we'll see her, Mike Lissakatis, Christos Uzis, and Jane Shanahan. Jane works in our business office on their retirements. And again, we'll recognize them again next week on the last day of school with staff. Peggy, I just want to echo your remarks as it relates to graduation. It was a beautiful ceremony and a beautiful day, and I always feel that we have the most majestic days at graduation here. I don't know if that's just me or what, but it always seems to be the most beautiful day when we celebrate our graduates with their families. Again, many of our staff members in Miss Sniffin's absence, although I can say Mrs. Sniffen is never really absent, so she was maintaining a very active presence, albeit remotely, in the days.
Texting you?
Yes, all of it. But that being said, actually at the day of the event, Ms. Paparo, Ms. Granisi, Mr. Virginamo, Mrs. Kachin, the office staff, Mr. Julis, and Mr. Rosa, and I know I'm forgetting others, but all played a really important supporting role in making sure that we had a smooth commencement exercise. And I think we valued and honored the traditions of Haldane, of which there are many, while celebrating our students as they cross this important threshold into the next part of their lives. So I'm really excited to see what comes of this class. They're special in many ways. And with that, that concludes my remarks. I'll have some more things to say at the end of the meeting.
All right. I think there was a little bit of confusion about where the meeting was tonight, so I apologize to people for whom that was the case. But and actually, that is why I'm looking at my phone, is to make sure that the people who contacted me know. All right, so we're now at the first opportunity for communication from the public. The Haldane Board of Education desires and values input from the entire school community. The first public comment session is reserved for comments on special presentations and active agenda items. For those who wish to address the board, please sign in and state your name for the record. Please keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less. Disparaging remarks and discussion of district personnel are strongly discouraged. Although we do not engage in dialogue, we're listening, and we'd ask that you leave your contact information with our district clerk for prompt follow-up from myself or Dr. Benante. All right. All right, so next in the agenda, we have our administrator information report. So we thank the administrators for those excellent, so much good news in those reports. And now we're going to go into G, consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And now into consent agenda financial. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Is there anything you want to bring to the board's
Give me
attention?
1 second here on financial. I just wanted to acknowledge that one of the items, item 5 on financial, continues the district's agreement with the Garrison Union Free School District for our staff to provide CPSE services to those students in Garrison who are eligible. That's all.
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And now consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Yes, please.
2 items here I just wanted to comment on. One, the tenure candidates' recommendations are included herein, so this is the board's opportunity to formally act on the recommendations that have been made. And second, we have several non-unit employees in the district, so employees who work in confidential titles who don't fall under one of the 3 bargaining units. Each year the board acts on an addendum agreement to those employees. They fall under individual work agreements. These addendum agreements are listed here, and if I could just speak to it, it includes a salary increase for these individuals for next school year, which I have recommended to remain consistent at 2.25%. That is consistent with the salary increase that we're providing to teachers for next school year, which we're collectively bargained. I don't always mean to tie those 2 things together, but I think it's an important point of reference since we just settled our teachers' contract. And it also has a recommended adjustment to make consistent their eligibility for vacation time and the number of days, and also the time that they're eligible to buy out. In examining the work agreements, there was some variability across the different individuals with respect to that time, and these addendum agreements make that now consistent across those individuals.
Just as a quick question, they're consistent among the non-unit employees and not with either the administrative. Okay, fine.
Correct.
Great.
I wanted to draw attention to the extended school year program, the appointment of positions for said, and just highlight how pleased I am for those students that need a continuum of services throughout the summer and for keeping the balance. So I'm pleased to see that there.
Sean,
Thank you.
and I don't recall if there was previous board action on this, but we have to go, because I don't think it required board action, but we actually have to go through an application process with New York State in order to house the program here at Haldane. And Dr. Cation facilitated or submitted that application and review to enable our students who otherwise would be referred to, again, programs regionally to remain in their home school for summer services if they're eligible.
That's great. Thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. So now we have our new item of unfinished business, which is the board's self-evaluation. It's the timeline for this is a little compacted this year. We've had a busy spring, but this is still a relatively new practice of the board to be doing a self-evaluation. I think it's maybe not that new, but third or fourth. I think it thought it was really important that we keep this tradition, and so in the spirit of keeping everything in an open meeting, we are having this conversation in an open meeting and letting the public know that this year we took a little bit different approach. Instead of using the NISBA tool, we chose to really focus our self-evaluation on our board goals for the year. And we've all contributed some input, and Maggie has very graciously offered or agreed to. I don't know if she offered.
I think I stole it from John. Remember when I stole it from you?
Just talk about it.
No, I guess what I'll do is just quickly read the goal, and then we can just sort of talk about the shared. I didn't read all of Sean's, so if you want to chime in if I miscalculate. But our first goal, I thought I'll just read the goals, and then we can kind of, if there's anything we need to say or want to add. And everybody did contribute some comments earlier this week. So our first goal was collaborate with the superintendent to finalize the campus master plan draft, finalize the components of Project 1, and determine if and when Project 1 should be presented to the community for vote, with special attention throughout to community engagement and education. And I think we've sort of all agreed that we did okay on this goal.
Yeah.
But everybody definitely had are thinking to the next step, right? To the year, it'll be sort of a big year with the new superintendent and having him help us get it on the ballot. A lot of community engagement. It's going to be a big job. So I think, yeah. Anything else anyone wanted to add?
I mean, I think we kicked off the process. I mean, to the extent that we had the community forum early on, we heard some very clear feedback about some aspects of the plan and originally planned Project 1 that we had not necessarily foreseen. And I feel like with the support of Dr. Benante, we very quickly were able to sort of do a little bit of a pivot, not a big pivot, into pulling the HVAC work out so that we could study that further, as well as respond to community feedback regarding the concern about the scope, and really look very critically at what was in Project 1, and really get to a point where even with all the some of the transitions going on right now, be ready to put that before the community for a vote in October. So that feels, again, super collaborative, not anything the board accomplished on its own by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly if our goal was to support, I think, we did that.
Yeah, I would agree and say that, we kind of ended the year, I think, with a very healthy conversation about the next steps, and I feel structured as we can. This will be certainly the first time since I've been on the board that we will have, I would say, a considerable amount of work to do over the summer, which we typically do not, and it's specifically focused on how we choose to communicate about this. So I think this is an opportunity for us, particularly as we bring in a new board member, to, while we're in the process of figuring out the best way to reach the community, to kind of examine how we are and how we are not effective on communicating on a variety of goals and things that we want to communicate. So I'm kind of enthusiastic about that as we move forward as well.
Great. Good. Okay. Yeah. Goal 2. We were tasked with monitoring the work of the Pupil Personnel Services Department as it develops long-term plans for program improvements and engages in near-term actions. And I think it was really, we did a pretty good job of keeping an open dialogue and listening to Dr. Cation. The special ed programs and the offerings, there's been a complete evolution at least in the last couple of years since she's been here. And all it is, from our point, is just sort of asking questions, and she's so thorough. But, it seems like keeping we're doing a better job of, keeping the kids here when appropriate, and it's, I don't know, it's just sort of been amazing to watch unfold, so.
Yeah. And I think with Dr. Benante's, guidance, also be thinking about like how the budget can support these different, the different initiatives that are happening there, right, in terms of thinking about like, what we're doing for professional learning around universal design for learning, really thinking about how to implement the new class for K2 in the most effective and responsive ways possible, and then just really making sure that, working to, create the conditions for success for that program in terms of, maybe it's adding a fence to the playground, or maybe it's, thinking about other ways that we can, that the district can support that class. And so I really appreciate that.
I would say another facet of an opportunity that I think we hadn't seen being taken advantage of in the past was, the considerable work that needs to be done with stakeholders who aren't parents or who have been through the program in the past, and how, not surprisingly, a director of PPS can be heavily scrutinized throughout that process, because sometimes they're seen as gatekeepers who either do with some equity or not equity, meet all the needs, et cetera, set of things that are said. And some of that just comes out of the openness and the transparency with which that person is willing to be with the community. And I feel like those individuals in the community who feel like they need to be heard, I think really feel like there's an open door to communicate in a positive way and an effective way, and the culture of families that are stakeholders, I think, really feel heard and seen, and in a way that I think is really healthy and really encouraging for the future too. So, and I feel like that has everything to do with, not our oversight of PPS by any means, but those are one of the things that have become very evident since we've had the opportunity to really focus in on it over the past couple of years.
I'd add just a short piece to that. I think, especially when we talk about a learning environment and learning cultures, again, I wouldn't necessarily say it's based upon our oversight, but the willingness of the district to go along with many of these really important, I feel, cultural shifts to broaden our understanding of learning at Haldane, which PBS has done, I think, a very good job of doing that, specifically this past year, but even more so. So I think there's, it's the professionalism, of course, but I think the culture within the school and really embracing a much broader concept of learners at Haldane, I think is fantastic.
It definitely, in my time here, I certainly have felt a shift, and I think it's continuing, continuing in really good ways.
I would just point out one thing sort of indicative of the consistency with which the district is treating. One of the things that I think came up in the audit, and when people come and report before the board, I don't think they want to point out all the dirty laundry, so they sort of soft pedal some of the things that are potentially constructive criticism. But I think one of the things that I think was heard was integrated co-teaching is great, but, and I think that one of the things that has come up consistently over time is as we continue to hear about what we're doing in that, we have done a great job with this, and we're looking to expand what we do. And that's been something that you said, Dr. Cation, and as you think about how we invest against that. So it was marked to me, it was remarkable to me that, not remarkable, but it was useful insight to me that we heard something, we're acting on it, it's been consistently brought before the board, and you're keeping your eye on it. That's exactly kind of what you want. So congratulations.
Our third goal was develop new processes and practices for building visitation with the goal of developing opportunities for observing educational programs and connecting with district staff. So, for this, we each got to attend one or two come into one of the schools for an hour or so and get a real-time look at being inside the classroom, seeing some teaching, seeing some learning, speaking with students. But I have to say, it was definitely facilitated by the administration, not by us, right?
Yeah, it
but
was.
I mean, we didn't.
We just showed up.
Yeah, and it was great. It was. I mean, it was just fun to see
Right.
the inside of
It was
these
great.
rooms and what's going on. So I'd love to continue that. There's definitely a desire moving forward to sort of integrate facilities into that. You know, getting a look at that. It'd be interesting to see communications in the buses. We hear all about this, but it's hard to know sort of how that works and what it looks like and what the challenges are. So.
Well, actually, as I think about it, I think we have Dr. Benante to thank for even recommending this shift in how we do this. So historically, the board visitation the building visitation or the visitation committee is really us just walking around looking at the facilities, which is super important, right? But this was a different shift, really, to try and create more connection between the board and teachers and staff, and I think it really accomplished that. But, I think if it's definitely a work in progress, right? This particular approach, because we do need to figure out how to incorporate the other piece of it, which is a focus on facilities. So yeah, and again, it definitely takes it's important for the board to make the commitment to spend this time because it's a couple of hours in doing it, but we do really rely and are very grateful to the building leaders and Dr. Benante for coordinating those visits. We love them.
I appreciate that for those who are available, and I realize that the way we schedule those doesn't always line up with everybody's schedule, but I think that's been an evolution of conversation that we've had over the years, and I think it was a good start this year, and some got to see more classrooms than others. I think Maggie got to see every classroom. Their student tour was, we're going to show you everything. But I think that what you mentioned is a really great idea to, next year, maybe as an added layer, meeting with Tom McKeel, our chief mechanic, to just learn a little bit. It doesn't have to be extensive, but just as one part of whatever that visit may be. Or Tim Moranti, overseeing ground maintenance. Right. Nancy down in the cafeteria, because you supported Nancy by some investments you've made in terms of equipment replacement over the years. I'm sure you would appreciate seeing some of the operation in the cafeteria area. And Nancy and her crew do a great job. So I think you're thinking about it in the right way, and it helps construct more meaning around what we talk about sometimes up here and actually seeing it in the building. I think that's important.
That's the thing. The two things I'd point out is I had the chance to attend elementary school, which is fantastic. I'll speak nicely about you, Ms. Chairman, don't worry. But the two things I thought were useful, one were to see the investments that the board has made in language education, pushing down, I think it was into 4th grade. And you're like, okay, and that sort of it makes it brings it to life. And you're like, oh, okay, this is how it works. This is right. And the second part was that we had a conversation at the end about sort of showing how students move through the use of testing, and it was a really nice conversation that I hadn't had visibility into how the ways all the different tests work and the usefulness of them, and it showed up in a board meeting, right? And so you're like, okay, that provides you an opportunity outside of a forum like this to sort of have a conversation that can drive some more information for the board and for the public. So I thought they were just great. It was just a lot of fun. So
one note that I had made, and this was kind of looking forward, if we think about, I think it would be useful for us as a board to go through all the aspects that on the facilities that are included in the first phase of the master plan, to have an intimate sense of eyes on what is going to be shifting, and having some support, not only from director of facilities, but that might be having someone who's from the team, from CSR, or someone who's becoming more familiar with it. And I would think that we would have to organize it in very much the same fashion, since we would all be there together. So I feel like
Another thought is, sorry, I don't mean to interject. This is your conversation, but to think about doing that as part of a retreat this summer.
Right. Yeah.
Just because you'll have more space potentially to do it, and availability potentially to do it, and you could have CSR to come and talk about the specific elements.
Well, that's exactly what my whirlwind tour of the high school compromise was. I got to go up to Mabel Merritt and see, going up the stairwell this way, but then you exit the classroom down the fire escape, and it brought a lot of the concerns to light that we're working on with Project One. So to see it was immeasurable.
That's a really good idea, though. Yeah. Yeah, it would be a long. So I hear a couple of things that I want to try and make a note of at some point. That in the long term incorporates a focus on facilities, but Sean being very clear that for this next year it's important for the board to really see everything, to really get our eyes on everything that's in Project One and how that's going to change. I think it could definitely be something. We're going to do a summer retreat pretty soon, so if we didn't do it then, maybe we would do it right at the beginning of September, right? Well, we'll need to figure out what's possible by whenever we have our July retreat. And then, but even moving forward, to the extent that we incorporate the facilities piece into it moving on, it'll make that a longer day. I don't think that's a bad thing. But yeah.
I think it's useful to know how Mayor's Park gets mowed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
it happens.
I know.
Somebody gets I don't know, but it's down there. It's not here. And somebody does it as part of a regular job. During baseball season, it probably gets mowed.
Okay, sorry, goal 4. This is creating and adopting a new board member orientation manual and related processes to facilitate information transfer, promote consistency, and maintain a highly effective body. We haven't rolled this out, I think, in the way that Peggy and I have envisioned. We did sit down one time. I think it's been over a year. We did a little research into what other boards, how they orientate their new members, but it just sort of got away from us with everything else that went on. So, but
Figure it out.
yeah. So I think it's something to keep thinking about. I don't know how fully we want to make it, but we definitely, there's a process. We're looking to make it a little bit more, I think, at least from my view, a bit more tangible, someplace where we could go. But former board president Jen Daly, made a point to sit down and, have that big initial conversation, and then the members of the administration and anywhere else that I needed information or had questions about, they were totally available. But it would just be sort of nice if that was a little bit more,
I think so, and so I do. It's something it's the kind of test that I've always thought, like, well, and I've got all these different versions from different districts and ideas, and Maggie and I made a list of terms. I mean, I have the pieces to get started, and I am hopeful that my time will free up in July, and I think the time is to really, Michelle can be our first test subject, I was going to say. But I think formalizing it makes sense. I mean, I feel like we'll speak about this a little bit later on, but I think one of the things that the board has really accomplished in the past 6 years with Dr. Benante here is sort of firming up some of our protocols and practices and how we do things, and that there's a rationale behind that, and really helping to at least create a set of documents that would share that information with someone, as well as just like, what's WIPSPA, what's NISBA, what's MTSS, and what, there's a lot of information, as well as how's the district structured, and there's a lot of details about the district that you need to know as a board member that you don't necessarily need to know as just a community member, and how to facilitate that. And so, so I think it is, there's other things we've done this spring, but that was not one of them.
And was there anything else anyone else wanted to mention? Moving forward, goals to think about? We could talk about that on our retreat. All right.
Actually, one thing I thought about, let's think about for next year. So when we do the superintendent's evaluation, historically, like the superintendent does his self-evaluation, and then obviously he does the evaluation with us because we are his evaluators, but it would be good for the board to think about how to incorporate feedback from others besides just ourselves. And I'm not sure how we want to do that, but I think, one of the things is for us to do this in open meeting. That's required, but there might be other ways that we could reach out for feedback from the administrative council. I think that might make the most sense, but I don't know if any other board has done that, but it's something we could think about exploring. Maybe our interim superintendent will have some ideas for how to do that.
So we can ask his therapy dog. I'm sure he's
Great. Great dog.
I could.
the most intimate partner, I would imagine. So.
That's great. All right. So I think I think we feel good about a couple of things. I think we recognize the visitation and engaging with district staff is something we want to continue to work on, and we have our work cut out for us in finding a way to support the onboarding of new board members. So that's, yeah. All right. Thanks, Maggie. That's our discussion. All right, so now we're going into new business with the CSE, CPSE recommendations. May we have the recommended action, please?
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the recommendations of the Committees on Special Education and Preschool Special Education as presented.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the approval of a bond resolution for the purchase of student transportation and maintenance vehicles.
And I just want to remind you, it's a roll call vote.
Yes, thanks.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the attached resolution authorizing the purchase of student transportation vehicles and maintenance vehicles for the Haldane Central School District at Phillipstown, Dutchess, and Putnam Counties, New York, at an aggregate maximum estimated cost of $275,380, and authorizing the issuance of $275,380 of serial bonds of said district to pay the costs thereof. President Clements?
I think I need to, did I take
Okay.
I didn't make a motion. No, I need a motion. That's okay. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, now we'll have the vote.
Quickly, I forget.
Yes.
President Clements?
Yes.
Vice President Valentine?
Yes.
Trustee Clementson?
Yes.
Trustee Headland?
Yes.
Trustee McNow?
Yes.
All right, that's great. Now, the approval of the school photography agreement for the 24-25 school year. May we have the recommended action, please?
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the agreement with Christine Ashburn Photography, Hudson Valley School Photography, for the 24-25 school year to include student and staff portraits, candid photography, extracurricular photography, and additional photography support as detailed in the attached agreement, and authorizes the superintendent to sign the agreement on behalf of the district.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Anything?
Has this seems to have been a positive relationship this year, so that's good to.
Yes,
Yeah.
there were some growing pains, I would say, along the way, but Ms. Ashburn was very responsive to the feedback that we provided, and we feel comfortable with moving forward with her services for next school year.
She was working very hard at graduation.
She was.
She really was,
She was.
man. I was impressed.
Oh, was she the one with the dual camera?
Yes.
front? Oh my
yes. Yes.
Yes.
She really was, yeah.
Yeah.
And she had an assistant there, yeah,
On
and
the
she,
side.
yeah.
Okay,
She's
yep.
doing a great job.
Great.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right. And so next is the approval of unpaid time off for a staff member. May we have the recommended action?
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves 10 unpaid days off for Brian O'Gorman, high school special education teacher, effective September 16th through 27th, 2024.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
And so,
I thought
yeah.
we were discussing this. Oh,
Oh,
but
is it,
also,
it's not, there's,
I
there
thought
was
we
a
were.
recommended
this was actually-
actions, and we are going to discuss it, but after, I need the motion for us to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah?
I think you had a second. You did.
I did, thought I did, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just some background,
Yeah,
if that's okay.
yeah.
Mr. O'Gorman, and this is included in the documents that are attached, but Mr. O'Gorman went through a process of trying out for Ireland's national lacrosse team, and made it. And I would say that he had talked to me a bit as he was going through the process, and did indicate that it would require, if he were to make the team, him to take time, but it was obviously a unique experience for him to engage in. It did come with further conversation with Mrs. Sniffen. She is supportive of his request. It is in feeling that this is a very unique individual opportunity, but we stand to benefit as a learning community from Mr. O'Gorman's engagement in this way. Julia and Brian have already made plans on how we can accommodate students during the time in which he would not be here. Knowing that would be a point of concern. It was a point of concern for Brian. But that being said, we think the potential upside is very good, not only for him personally, but for the school community in his work with students, both next school year and in the future. That being said, it's 10 days, and granted it's unpaid, and felt it was important to discuss with the board, but it is included as a recommended action.
Did he request it as paid time off to take?
No.
Because isn't that sort of a more conventional? I know. Is it different for I don't know, for the teachers? Is it in the contract? Usually a conventional job, you use up all your paid time when
Sure.
you can, especially for something that's not
This
health-related.
particular type of leave isn't really accounted for within in the contract. So a teacher would have sick time that they're eligible to utilize. He's not going to be sick. He has personal time that he's eligible to use. This doesn't necessarily fall under, first of all, it exceeds the number of personal time that a teacher would receive. Typically, that's 3 days personal time. So that's why he's made the request for unpaid leave.
Do they get vacation time?
No, they would receive school holidays off that are incorporated into the calendar.
I think it's a great opportunity, and obviously it comes with, I'm assuming it's a great opportunity for him, and it comes with Mrs. Sniffin's recommendation, which makes it hard to say no. I just worry about if there's anything, does this set a precedent now for a handful of teachers, staff members, administrators next year that want to take unpaid time off?
Right. And that's something that on the administrative end we have to be deliberate with. I feel that because there's been other requests for leave that have not been approved. In this particular case, I think we see and have talked to Brian about the potential educational value that he could bring back to our students in that perspective by engaging in this opportunity that we feel good about. Whereas other leave requests maybe fall outside of that or fall under a category where a teacher has a legitimate right to leave. Understand your concern. It's something we've discussed with Mrs. Sniffen and Mr. O'Gorman, but feel that it wouldn't necessarily establish a precedent in that we haven't, I don't think it's typical that we see such opportunities for our teachers. And if we did, then we would be setting the precedent that we would allow for a teacher to potentially engage in those opportunities, which I think are very few and far between.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that under other circumstances could have just been on a consent agenda personnel, but because of the kinds of issues that Maggie is raising, we thought it was really important for the board to have an opportunity to reflect and even have an opportunity to discuss it in an open meeting. I really appreciated that, Dr. Benante really recognized this when we talked about this at the agenda meeting, the potential concerns that we had about it. And, I think in my mind, the memo from Mrs. Sniffen goes a long way, in her support for this. I think, talking about president makes me think about my days on the Nelsonville Zoning Board of Appeals. But I mean, but one of the things even then was like, well, situations are different. Like not every request for time unpaid leave is the same. And I think especially if a teacher's direct supervisor feels that it is both a very unique once in a lifetime event, but also one that does have the potential to enrich, the teacher's life, and through the teacher's life, the students' lives. And then that recommendation from that professional, being the building leader, along with the support from Dr. Benante, does make sense to me. But I think if this is something that the board decides that it wants to do, we're definitely making it clear that it's something that we do see as really kind of like what has been the exception to the rule of the board typically not granting unpaid leave for any extended period of time. I mean, this is 2 weeks. It's not, other requests have been for longer where we've declined those. So do folks have other thoughts?
I'm inclined to agree with you about that principle that Julia seems to be in support of it and feels confident that at that time of the year that this can be managed, and that internally that makes complete sense to me. I mean, I can imagine any other reasons why she may have said no if it had been at a different time, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the timing probably also had something to do with it. It's the beginning part of the year before the rhythm started. Doesn't happen simultaneous with any important event. So it makes complete sense to me. And I feel like the danger of precedent, I think, is superseded by, the fact that we try to take everything as it comes and decide based on the merits of every case and request what's the appropriate thing to do at any given time. But that's my thought.
I really appreciate Maggie's questions, the way they've really raised that there's not something in that teachers have an unusual work agreement, right? Where there aren't typically, these kinds of days typically aren't allowed under any other circumstances. Yeah.
We don't really get days.
No, you don't.
No. And I don't think we're inundated with Irish lacrosse players either. So I get the point. I do get the point. And I'm not belittling the point. I think I get it. But we really don't have days. And so when things that are just out of the norm pop up, I mean, it's also, unfortunately, if you're not in it, sometimes you don't know. I mean, just the absurdities that you get. My uncle died. Couldn't take a time off. Couldn't take a day. Wrong bereavement. Was detailed in the contract a different way. So, and then you're like, nah, can't go. So it's wild. People assume teachers have all this time, but our time is unbelievably structured when we're at work, right? And we're under contract time. And so it is shockingly difficult to do things out of the norm. And there's reasons for it, right? There are.
Like the summers.
Huh?
Like the summers.
So that's not out of the norm, though, right? So when things pop up out of the norm, there's no flexibility there. There really isn't. And so recognizing, this is one of the only avenues in order to provide this type of leave. It really is.
It'd be nice to get them on the lacrosse coaching team too.
Understood. Yep.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Nope. All good. I do appreciate what Maggie's, because I think we've been caught like, oh, this happens.
Yeah.
You're like, really? Right? Contractually. Like, this is how we do business. So what gives me comfort here is there's it's a limited amount of time. B, there's a check in the middle, right? That it's for now, if somebody were to come back and say, oh, we do this all the time, well okay, get recommendation from a member of the administration, and it can't be more than 10 days, right? If we want to put this in a contract, that's another story, and that's a quid pro quo. But you would never want to be in this circumstance like 5 years from now. It's like, unpaid time off is a thing we do here. No. So I hear you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that I think it's within, well, completely understanding Ezra's point. I think it is something, it's reasonable for the board to really consider this very carefully. Because it does have an impact on students, it is 10 days. But given for the reasons, so I don't know, do people feel like they need to talk about this more before we vote? All right. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yes. Oh. Nay. Nay, okay. So, and you caught that, Catherine? Yes. All right. So, all right, that is the end of most of our business. There's now an opportunity for communication from the public, the second opportunity for people to raise anything they'd like to raise. All right. So I think we want to do, well, actually, I know one of the things we want to do during board reflections is share our thoughts about our appreciation for John as well as for Dr. Benante. But before we do that, are there other reflections from the board? If you wanted to talk about what?
We're going to end on John.
That's right.
We're gonna.
Well, more important than these two guys is the dog that we're getting. Carl.
And there's still some
Service
cake.
dog, there's
So-
cake. I mean, you guys are. But I was going to mention graduation. Unbelievable ceremony. It was the first graduation I've been to. Because usually I've had, there's softball going on.
I went last year.
Well, you're a better board member than I, obviously, Maggie. But it was one of the things that came across, again, when we talk about Haldane, and what I've shared. The valedictorian got up and she said that we're, top 5% in test scores. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Well, nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty good. She glossed over that. And it was about, really about character and about how kids carry themselves and how a small school helps kids feel together, and specifically their graduating class. A running theme was the difficulties that they have dealt with, and it's been a very rough year. And just them falling back on one another was incredible, and it just came through in speeches and how kids interacted. Those are really incredible things for people to say, and that's quite a testament to what's being done in these buildings and to the learning community here. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's great. All right. So I'm going to elect that we first talk about John, and then we talk about Dr. Benante. Is that okay? Okay. So I just want to say, I'll start getting to serve with John on the board has just been delightful. I will really miss John's intellect and critical thinking, and really just his attention and intelligence that he's really brought to everything. John always asks just really great questions, and I think has just been a critically important member of the board, and the community is really very lucky for the public service that you've dedicated, and so thank you so much.
Thank you.
If I could ask questions as well as you could, I'd be set. So I appreciate that, and just the willingness to take a phone call, which didn't happen a lot, but I knew that if I needed to ask you anything, it's just nice to have your take on things. So
Absolutely.
we will miss you. I will miss you.
Yeah, awesome.
I think when I was considering running for the board, John was the first person I called. under several recommendations that I do so. And he certainly encouraged me that it was the right thing to do. And he quickly, because I knew John socially in a way, but very quickly, as he does with everyone, wins their tremendous respect. And that has deepened over the past 5 years. I can't echo enough what both of them say about your eye and the questions that you ask and things that would have gone unseen had you not sat aside and beside us throughout this process. And we are really lucky, and it's that we are in the good place we are has a tremendous amount to do with your participation on the board. And I'm just grateful on behalf of all of our students who have benefited from that, and our staff as well. And you're also just one of the other things that I commented on when I first was I was impressed by how Phil was everywhere all the time. That continues to be, but certainly in that first year that he was the superintendent. But yeah, I think maybe second to Phil, you are the person who has his eyes and his body in the most sort of Haldane experience possible. You're everything all the time, and always a wonderful advocate and celebrant. And you will continue to be, I know, but in different capacities.
All the things I'm getting John to continue to promise to work on.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
See you around the block.
Absolutely.
This is the second board I've served on with John, and I have the incredible ability to chase him off of boards. So whenever then he leaves. And I don't know.
Correlation, causation.
What does that
We can
mean,
talk.
John? John's really bright. We've said it a million times, but he's a really good thinker. We're gonna miss that. I have a tendency to speak sometimes before I think. I don't think I've ever seen you do that, ever. You always think intently before you speak. You're an absolute incredible presence, and you will be missed. So, you got it, buddy.
Warm. We're talking about definitely very smart, but also very warm.
Yes.
And really, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have a little.
Oh, thank you.
You have something for John too that we had arranged for.
And Dr. Benante, it's board reflections, but you should jump in.
Is
I
that okay if we're
I
talking
think
to
so.
John?
Yeah, I think so.
Because Megan
think so.
also coordinated a gift from all of us to. Oh. I signed that. Peggy, you're supposed to sign that. I'll sign that. The small. Can I pass? Can you pass that over to him? John from us, and I'll include the board in that. And there's 3 things that immediately come to mind when I think of John. There's more than 3, but I'll share only 3. First, John, when I had come to Haldane, you may recall this, I met with all of the board members prior to. We met down in the main building. It was part of my entry. And I found my notes the other day from all of my entry meetings.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm cleaning out some files. I want to leave the office in a good place, and I found all my entry meeting notes. And the first question I asked each board member was, well, why are you on the school board? And John was just newly elected. You were transitioning from the school foundation, if I remember correctly, to the school board. And John had said, well, volunteerism is a really important part of this community, or something to that effect. And I feel that this was a way that I could contribute to the community. And I think you've just modeled the spirit of that in the 6 years that I know we've had together. Because the second piece is there's been, as others have noted, there's a couple times over the years where I've called John just because you want, as I have probably all of you, just because you want perspective on something. I just need to talk to somebody. We're dealing with an issue. And I leaned on John, who could just provide in like 2 minutes, like a depth of perspective on an issue. I'm like, wow, he just thinks like this. This is amazing. It would take me hours to distill my thoughts down into what John seems to be able to do quite readily. And lastly, on a humorous note, when we started to Zoom, John Zoomed from the most interesting place in Cold Spring, I felt. On a lighter note.
Yes.
There was John, where are you? I'm in my basement.
In the basement.
The camping gear, all of them. But no, John, I have other things to share about the board, but I just so appreciate the time that we've had together over the 6 years. And yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank
Well,
you.
just a couple. I'm not stopping because this was not fun. This was great. Like, and I hope to do as good a job as Sarah Jones did. Like 2 weeks ago, she came up and spoke as this BOCE student of distinction, and she sold BOCEs. I was like, oh my God. She was fantastic. And just as I think about the things that I've been able to encounter over the course of the past 6 years, just indicative of fantastic students talking about things that you haven't experienced before. Like, if I could sell board service as well as she sold BOCEs, we would have 20 people running. So it's been a fantastic experience. I've enjoyed basically every minute of it, even the real good, even the challenges, because that's what you need to work through. So served with the people here, people who are now no longer on the board. It's been an utmost pleasure. So you are in great hands, and it's going to be a fantastic next year, fantastic next couple of years. So yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
So I think we all also want to sort of share some parting words about Dr. Benante. I'm actually going to elect to go last, if that's okay this time.
Oh my goodness.
I can share my story first.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I'll make it quick, but the first time that my husband and I met Dr. Benante formally is it was like 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, we had a complaint about my son in elementary school. He got some weird handout. It wasn't from the teacher.
I found those notes too.
You did?
Yeah.
And it wasn't from the teacher. It was Ms. Jammin. It was just something that came in from the second step, but different provider. Anyway, I just remember we aired, you listened to us. You pulled out that 10-inch, 12-inch binder. I don't know if it was the regs.
So policies.
It was the policies, and
Yeah.
it wasn't online.
What existed then, at least.
And you took your time flipping through until you found, the applicable policy. But anyway, we felt heard, and you took your time, and I just feel like that exemplifies, so much of what the work that you've done here. Everybody that I've spoken to, they feel heard from you. You give everybody your time, and you take the time to go through the work. So, Haldane is a better place,
Thanks.
and we will definitely miss
Thank
you.
you.
So.
Yeah, I would just say sort of three things. Four things. One, it's not necessarily coincidence that I'm leaving the board just when you leave. I'm just saying. But three things. One, you've always been someone who is not afraid of taking on challenges, and I think we all in the district appreciate you for that. You've been also very good at helping us not get into challenges, because that's reducing the points of friction is a big part of the game. And I think for as much of that is visible and not visible to the public, I appreciate all the work that you've done and all the support you've had and be able to do that. And we are, as you consistently said from maybe year 2 about your own annual evaluation, high exceeding is like, it will go on without me. And we are in a much better place, and we will go on without you because of what you've done over the course of your term here. And that's not even saying COVID. Right, and that's that's a big hole in the middle. That, we're not going to go back, but we're in we're a much better place we were when we started. So thank you.
So I'll be relatively quick. As most people in this room know, education is a very small world. And so I knew about Phil before Phil knew about me in a really incredible way. We have a shared friend, a man that I hold in incredibly high regard. And he said, as you guys are in safe hands, Phil Benante is one of the greatest people I've ever worked for in my life, hands down. And it's obvious that Phil is very good at his job. I thought he was an intelligent guy, but you can't be that intelligent if you're leaving Haldane there, buddy. But just saying. But he is, and you're also a very good communicator, which will definitely be missed. You had, and you get out in front of things, and you also you speak clearly, You, you know, you're not a flip-flopper. You speak well, and you mean it. And, you know, you've talked a lot about character for the hires that we have here, the character for our students, and that is at the top. You're a man of good character.
Thank you.
And, you know, and 20 years and so on of education and seeing all the varied types of people that fill that role, you do a very good job.
Thank you.
And Arlington is very lucky to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, picking up from Arlington, I think that so much about this community. I'm not from this community originally, but so much about Haldane and the generational connection to Haldane is just the sense of homecoming. And so, in addition to all the superlatives that have been heaped upon you, as difficult as it is to say goodbye, and as positioned as we continue to be for success, for your support and for your leadership, it is, it's a beautiful thing that for you and for your family, that you have this opportunity for homecoming. And that makes, it's bittersweet for sure for all of us to say goodbye to you, but it feels very meaningful to me as a person who has seen how important home is to this community, that you get to take that journey at this point. I'm just so pleased that they had the good wisdom to bring you back and give you the stewardship of that district that is so meaningful to you as well. So I have nothing but well wishes for you and gratitude, as you know. So thank you.
So when Dr. Benante told me he was leaving, I began to write a list of all the things that I felt like the district had been able to, it goes on another page, that all the things the district had been able to accomplish under his leadership. And it's so enormous. And I'm not going to do a whole laundry list, but I actually think tonight really is an example of some of those key things. So under his guidance and foresight, we have grown our music program, right? I mean, we, just in this past budget, we grew our student support staff. Joshua's presence here is an example of how, this is an organization that hires and has as a staff, 100-something people, and we didn't have an HR professional, right? And so that has brought a level of not just organization, but thoughtfulness and planning and just higher functioning. And the district is so much better off for having Dr. Benante be here for the first 6 years. I remember the first couple of years I would meet with Laura and then Jen, and all we were just like, we hope he stays, we hope he stays, we hope he stays. And I feel so fortunate that he has been with us for such a long time. Or at least for 6 years. I feel like one of the best things I've contributed to the district was being part of the group that hired Dr. Benante, and I remember his interview so clearly, and when it was over, just really feeling like, this was it, and that we were very, very fortunate for him to be here. Dr. Benante holds himself to incredibly high standards, and I feel like you bring out the best in the people that work with you. And Dr. Benante asked me to give him a reference to Arlington, and I said to him,
Secrets revealed.
I'm sorry, I said to him, I said, if you had asked me in a year or two, I would have done so joyfully. but I would do it, and it was a hard conversation for me to have. It was. But by the end, she was asking me these questions, and by the end, I was like, he is a spectacular superintendent. You all will be very lucky to have him. And so, thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
It's been a real joy.
Oh, and...
Thank you.
We have a little something
Didn't have
for
to
you.
do that. I really appreciate it. If I may,
Yes.
share a few things. So, I was going through some things, watching some early board meetings when I first started, just as a point of reflection, just to see where we've come from and some of the things I've been a part of. And I'm just reminded that how the board and I have been able to work together really created a clear sense of governance for the school district over the last 6 years. I really feel strongly about that. And that set the foundation for any good work that was done, really came by way of the relationship that we were able to create together. And I think it demanded a level of candor along the way, and also a level of sacrifice on everybody's part, myself included, to arrive at that place where we felt that a sense of confidence and trust in how the board was governing the school district, and in turn how I was managing the school district. But I think it showed over time that it's really what's been best for our kids in the programs that we've been able to expand and offer to our kids. As I would say, we punch above our weight, and 6 years now, I think we certainly demonstrated that at a time that was really complicated to do so. I feel good about it, and the contributions that I would say I've made, but we've made, and that goes for my leadership team as well. I really do. And it's, as John had shared with me early on, it's a very civic-minded and engaged community. And I know we may not see that here at the microphone every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, but it comes up in other ways in our community groups and work groups that we're on. And I think that's unique. But for me, what I'm taking away, I won't talk about what I'm leaving behind as much as what I'm taking with me. I think that it's reaffirmed that kind of approach, that importance of engaging the community and along the way, is really what's necessary to have the community support for our school. And again, it may not all play out in a board meeting, but I think it plays out in a lot of ways in the various engagements that you have individually as board members and then as groups that you're a part of on the various work that we're trying to do as a school district, whether it be the master planning work, the HVAC work group, policy committee, and others that we're a part of. And I want you to know that, and I'm centering my remarks more so on the board right now because I'll have other opportunities to talk to the staff. But when I've made decisions here, I hear your voices, each one of your voices, and I mean that, as I'm thinking through matters that are impacting our district. And I think that really comes by way of how you've governed and the questions that you've asked along the way, and the care that you've taken to really think about matters which impact the district, your clarity, and your advocacy for our kids. And that's had an impact, I know, on me, the other times of the week when we're not together, as I'm working with our team through matters that we're approaching in the district on a day-to-day basis. And there's a few people, I just wanted to mention who aren't here. So I obviously have the opportunity to work with all of you. Laura Hammond was the board president when I had come on, and Laura was very supportive in welcoming me to the community and easing my transition in. There's a lot to get to know when you're coming into the Phillipstown, Cold Spring, Nelsonville community, and Laura was a really good and gracious steward, if you will, of the community and the community's values, and helping me come to understand that. Margaret Parr was an active board member for a couple of years while I had come on, and I just spoke to Margaret a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't talked to her in some time about the master plan, and she had some great feedback to provide about Project One, and Margaret was a very engaged board member, and Jen Daly, obviously. Jen, I had the opportunity to serve with Jen as well. And just wanted to make sure I express my appreciation for them. I don't think I've forgotten any board member that's not at this table, but those three I wanted to make note of. And then 3 district clerks, Catherine, Julia Famularo was district clerk when I had come on to the district, and Megan, obviously now. And all were incredibly supportive in making sure that we were prepared and the board had what they needed when we came to the table every Tuesday. And obviously, board president was very, and vice president were very involved in that. and I felt that they all played a big part in making sure things were running smoothly for the board, so we could do our best work when we were at the table together. And someone sat at the table for the first couple of years, Ann Dinio. Was always at the table, and Ann retired obviously and is doing really well, but I just wanted to acknowledge that Ann was a really important member. She was like having an assistant superintendent in many ways, because she had such knowledge of the school district and was so active. And I know the board really had great trust in Ann, as you do with Catherine now, but Ann was at the table with us for those couple of years, and I just wanted to make sure I acknowledged Ann as well. And I've had the good fortune, because of the work we've done, to be able to present to people who are thinking about becoming superintendents through some teaching that I do. And that's based on observations that others have made about the work we've done together. And I just think that's great. It validates how we've all entered into this together. And I feel, good about what we've been able to do and how we've been able to represent the community as a governance team. Sadly, I noted in Maggie's remarks, she did not want to speak anymore about my fielding ability on the softball field. But maybe there's a day I'll come back and show that I'm actually a better baseball player than I showed.
Will actually asked today, I was telling him that this was your last meeting, my son, and he asked if you would come back. You think he'll come back
I talked to him.
and watch a game?
I talked to him. We've already talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he has a commitment there from me. So, no, but been great. And the kids and the families in this community have just been spectacular. So I feel like I'm a better leader because of our experiences together and with the community as a whole. I feel I'm a better parent to my own kids, and just having the chance to see so many parents over these years and the families that they've built. And most importantly, I feel I'm a better person. So thank you.
All right. So I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, I'm opposed.